Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Omaha. I am Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Reed Duke. And we've got Steve Rubin versus Gregory Michael, or maybe it's Michel. And they are underway here in game one. Though, Reed, both players at 11 and 3.
Yeah,
not a great shot for top eight.
Steve Rubin just took a tough loss, really close game where it looked like he was going to win, but slipped away at the end.
It looked like he was going to lose, and then it looked like he was going to win, and then the glory got brought in.
Yeah.
That was brutal. We watched that one on camera last round.
Those are the heartbreaking games because in part I thought Steve had played very, very well to get himself to that position, and you have this feeling like, wow, I did it. Like I really, worked hard for this one, and then to see it go right at the end is tough. But as you mentioned, yeah, these players have 3 losses, so something strange would have to happen for them to make the top 8.
And from what we've been looking at least, it looks like something strange is not going to happen heading into our top 8 here, Reed, and that we may have what we call a clean cut. Can you explain what a clean cut is for people that haven't come out and played a lot of G's before?
Well, going into this round, it just so happened that there were 8 players with the record of 12 and 2 or better. And in the last round of a Magic tournament, the last Swiss round, players next to each other in the standings get paired. So, first against second, third against fourth, etc. And so tables 1, 2, 3, and 4, those 8 players with 12 and 2 or better, and they all headed to draw. And those will be the 8 players in our top 8.
Right, and that means that, again, it basically guarantees that they're going to be in the top 8 and that the rest of the players are playing for prize money, pro points, and a good top finish here. And that includes these 2.
Yeah, sometimes in coverage, we like to say players, control their own destiny. And what happens when you get your 3rd loss is you have no control over a situation like this. Sometimes in a smaller tournament, you can get lucky, things can break in a very specific way, and you can make the top 8 with a 12 and 3 record. But when you're playing at table 7, you have no control over what happens tables 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I am curious as it starts to develop, Reed. How aware are you of that as a player? Let's say you're not at those 1, 2, 3, or 4 tables for this tournament, but you're down a little further, or you're in a feature match like these 2. I mean, probably just want to put it to your head entirely, just to play your best Magic. But do you know?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'll usually only look into those things if I have a decision to make. If I'm deciding whether I'm going to draw or play. But in a situation like this, for these 2 players, there's no incentive to draw. I mean, an 11-3-1 record, that's not doing anything for you. So the best they can do is just win and let the chips fall where they will. I mean, 12-3 is a great finish that you can be proud of. You earn 3 pro points and some money. And whether they make the top 8 or not, they're playing for that win, and that's what they want.
All right. Well, right now, Steve Rubin looks like he is firmly in the lead here with a Wine Constrictor, a Plant, a Walking Ballista, and a Nissa on the battlefield. It's Greg's turn, but boy, does he have a lot of work to do with just the Thraben Inspector and a clue. He's always been able to produce thus far, thanks to the fatal push there from Steve Rubin.
Bit of a blast from the past type of matchup here, Mardu vehicles versus Black Green Constrictors.
Actually, isn't it?
Yeah, these were 2 of the top decks from Kaladesh and Ether Revolt. And now Amonkhet. They've both survived a long time in this format, and this tends to be a pretty classic good battle.
Yeah, the Mardu vehicles, of course, being the aggressor in the matchup, but this Black-Green Constrictor deck, it can detect too. This is no control deck we're looking at here in the hands of Steve Rubin. It is absolutely capable of explosive, usually more towards the middle of the game shenanigans.
Now, one of the risks of playing with Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, is she matches up remarkably poorly against Heart of Kirin. Black-Green Constrictor deck doesn't have any creatures that can block a flyer, and Nissa being a Planeswalker that can't get above 4 loyalty the turn you play her, sometimes the game breaks in a way where you just...
You get a plant?
Yeah, you get a plant. You can't really cast her in the case of a Heart of Kirin.
Right.
But Gregory's draw this game, he's had more of the classic aggro ground pounders draw, and that's exactly what the Black-Green Constrictor deck is well equipped to deal with.
And we see that explosive mid-range turn that I was just talking about, Reed, coming from Steve Rubin here, as he really has kind of all of his combos going. The Nissa, Voice of Zendikar minus to put a plus counter on each creature that Steve controls, but with the Wine Constrictor, it's 2 counters instead. And he just went from a pretty good board to an absolutely dominating board presence. This game is going to be over quickly. The Mardu Vehicles deck just not to come back from behind, right?
No, certainly not in game 1. They do pack powerful removal spells, but they're all 1-for-1 removal spells. There's nothing like a Fumigate that can really reset the board and give Gregory a fighting chance from this situation. The best he could probably put together here is a Fatal Push and an Unlicensed Disintegration, but even if he can do that, he's losing.
Yeah, pretty rough spot. Again, Gideon, one of the more powerful cards in Standard, full stop, but when you're behind, he ends up being more of a distraction than anything.
Yeah, well, the good thing about having a Planeswalker on a complicated board like this is if Steve wants to guarantee that he's going to kill the Gideon with an attack, he'd have to send as many as 3 creatures. But yeah.
All right.
One way or another, this game is not going in favor of Gregory, Michael.
Right, and he has, in fact, lost the game. Steve Rubin quite handily picking up game number 1. Thank you very much. And these are going to move to sideboards. We'll be back with more from GP Omaha after these matches. Omaha. I am Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke. We're covering round 15. Though it's a little anticlimactic, I must say, just because we kind of have our top 8 set already. There's a clean cut here in Omaha, and the players have taken intentional draws at the top tables to put themselves in. So we're watching the players that are kind of scrapping it out for those high finishes here at the GP. And I mean, this is a lot of where a professional player's bread and butter's made, though, right? This is,
most definitely.
You know, these points matter.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Owen Turtenwald, Eric Froelich. These are also players with 11-3 records.
Never heard of them.
And they, I mean, it's a big deal. We're getting towards the end of the pro season, and one or two pro points can make the difference between, you know, gold and platinum, silver and gold, making the world championships or not. So, yeah, these matches still have implications, and we can certainly still watch some good Magic.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's why Owen's here.
Yeah.
I asked him, I said, well, you know, you've had a heck of a year. What are you doing? And he's like, well, I've got, you know, the players are allotted their top 6 Grand Prix finishes for the season. And he's like, I got a 1 and a 2 down at the bottom. You know, you pick up a 4-pointer here and it replaces one of those. And that could be, like you said, the difference. And, you know, when you're a full-time professional Magic player like you are, Reed, and like Owen is, man, how could you live with yourself if you were a point or two short and you could have come out and did it?
And that's the tough thing, Marshall, is you never know. You never know, you know, how you're going to do on that final Pro Tour. You never know what the cutoff is going to be, how many points you need for the World Championships. So you sort of have to just go until
you do.
You know,
because
you can't go anymore.
Yeah, because like I think it's like not correct to look back and say I could have done something different unless you willfully chose to just not attend a tournament that you totally could have gone to. You know, like let's say Owen just said, I'm lazy. I don't want to get on an airplane. I'm just going to skip this one. I think you can look to yourself there and say you probably could have picked up a couple of pro points if you ended up a couple short. But if you realistically went to every event, you know, I've seen players beat themselves up about, if I would have just not mulliganed this one or taken a mulligan this one game, I kept the risk. You know, it's like, come on. You know, we know it's a much bigger picture than that. But
if I had double blocked
Right.
on that one turn of game 2
I
of
would
round
play
11 of the Pro
World.
Tour 6 months ago, but yeah, it's
that game
you
I
can
think
drive
is
yourself nuts.
slippery
stuff like
slope.
that.
Yeah, but I will say if you don't participate, then yeah, you probably should look in the mirror and say maybe I should have gone to Omaha. But that's not a problem for Owen. I'll tell you that, because he is here, coffee in hand, in battle. Oh man, I don't know if I can read this to you. Oh man, chat is lighting it up. That is such a beating. If I blocked that wolf token, good God. Chat is ruthless, Reed.
Yep.
You're lucky you can't see this when you're playing.
Yeah.
They're savages. I mean, not to you. They love you. But all right, let's jump back to our first match.
Yeah, this one looks like it's mostly over anyway.
Slightly
in favor of the zombies deck.
lopsided, yeah. Wow, this is a much better start here for Gregory.
Yeah, much better.
Look at this. Already attacking for 5. Well, I'll cancel that order.
Yeah.
Sentinel's Deliverance kind of killing one of its 2 main targets in Standard.
I'm sure Gregory wasn't super hopeful that the Heart of Kieran was going to connect there, given that Steve Rubin, has all his colors of mana and chose not to cast anything. Definitely representing a removal spell there. Notably, Gregory did not hit his 3rd land drop, so while he has a nice aggressive start, he might slow down a little bit from this point forward if he can't continue to make land drops. I always love to wait and see how the Mardu Vehicles players are going to sideboard in a matchup like this. Some people choose to, maintain their normal aggressive game 1 strategy, while others can go either mid-rangey or full controlling, bringing in cards like Fumigate.
Things starting to really come around here for Steve Rubin. A fatal push in combination with Liliana means that Greg Michael actually has negative power on the battlefield somehow. He is down to nothing, no threats.
Yeah, the turn that Steve played Liliana was, she wasn't 100% safe because Greg had multiple creatures, but now Steve Rubin has stabilized the board and still has the Planeswalker ticking up. Gregory just has to offer, offer Veteran Motorist at the altar of Liliana of the Veil.
Well,
just to get a scry.
Looks like a big boat just pulled up to the altar and kind of smashed everything. Sky Sovereign killing the Thraben Inspector, and then Liliana taking out the Motorist, and the only follow-up is another soon-to-be-dead Motorist for Greg. And good job, Steve Rubin.
Yep. Looks like Steve's very, very likely to finish 12-3 here, which is
great,
really nice performance.
Yeah. And, Steve fits that description that we were talking about earlier, Reed, scrapping it out for every pro point. Trying to get up to platinum, trying to get up to gold. This is definitely where a lot of the hard work is done. Ooh.
So Steve felt like he could easily choose to minus the Liliana, since an attack with Sky Sovereign is going to kill the Veteran Motors for free anyway.
He found a really nice one to crew up the Sky Sovereign as well,
yeah,
didn't
perfect.
he? Yeah. I suppose he had the backup plan of using his Hissing Quagmire in the case that he missed on a creature. There weren't any creatures in the yard when he minus Liliana. He did have to hit.
Yep.
But he knew that the Motorist was going to die one way or the other, and this is a much, much better way to go, getting a Tireless Tracker on the battlefield. And this game is over.
Yeah, Greg's in a particularly bad spot. He doesn't even have an artifact. Otherwise, Unlicensed Disintegration could take out a creature and the Liliana, but he has a lot of steps to go before he can even think about turning this game around. He needs to... probably first step is get the Sky Sovereign off the table with something like an Unlicensed Disintegration or release the gremlins, though it's doubtful that he would board in a card like that.
Yeah. Oh, it's desperation time for Greg. No doubt about that. Thraben Inspector, go. Steve's going to crack a clue on end step, putting a counter on his tireless tracker and moving him ever closer to finishing this game and giving himself a very solid 12-3 finish. He can get back on the airplane on his way back to Pittsburgh and feel pretty good about that. He would have liked to have been just that one game closer. He was very, very close to making it into the top 8, but a Glorybringer decided to change his fate there. What's the record, Reed, that you are? What's the worst record that you're happy with?
Well,
or do you sit there?
Platinum
and go,
players get to start with 3 buys, which makes a big difference. I mean, if I was started with 0 buys, and I made day 2 and had a deep run and went 10-5 or 11-4, I'd be thrilled with that. 3 buys changes the equation a little bit. So I would say when I go 11-4, that's like neither a success nor a failure. That's just bread and butter, as my friend Owen likes to say. Mm-hmm. But anything better than that is, a great job. If you went 12-3, that means you won the vast majority of your matches at a high level of competition.
You finished 9-3 and played matches.
Yeah, if you have 3 buys, you finished 9-3 and played matches. It's, 75% of your matches are wins. That's a good record by anyone's standards.
For those of you just joining us here in Omaha, we're in round number 15, but we're kind of watching the players scrap it out for pro points and cash because we actually had a clean cut. We had our top 8 players paired against each other at the top tables, and they reached out, shook each other's hand, and said, "I'll see you in an hour." Talked to our coverage reporter, our coverage writer here, Corbin Hostler. Got a little, where are you from? What do you do for a living? What's your favorite Magic card? And then, boom, they can go grab a sandwich. And by the time they come back, we'll be ready to go for our top 8.
It's something we don't see all that often anymore.
It's been a while.
The clean cut. It happened by virtue of Grand Prix Omaha being a little bit smaller than a lot of the, at least, yeah, I mean,
it's smaller.
In the United States, Grand Prix have ballooned quite a bit in size. Usually, you're working with 1,200, 1,400 players.
That's right. This one was a little over 800.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that does it. Steve Rubin with Black Green Constrictor puts up that solid 12-3 finish. Picks him up some pro points, maybe some money. And that is the life of a pro Magic player, chasing those pro points. 2 players in a similar scenario here. Matthias Hunt, he's on 11-3, also with Black Green Constrictor. He's playing against Jeremy Sager, who's on Mono Black Zombies.
Yeah, Matthias was one of our undefeated players overnight at 9-0. Had an average day today. If he can win this one, he'll be 3-3 for, as we mentioned, that really good 12-3 finish. But when you go to sleep at 9-0, you certainly have high hopes, and Matthias is likely at least a little bit disappointed with this.
Looks like Jeremy picked the right sleeves for his deck, didn't he? He's not really concealing much about what deck he's on.
So the Zombies took down game 1 in pretty impressive fashion. We saw 2 Liliana's Masteries on the table by the end of that. This game looks to be a lot closer. Both players have more or less the starts they're looking for with a couple of creatures. You see a Grasp of Darkness in Jeremy's graveyard. And how things develop over the next 2 turns or so is going to really dictate who has to play defense and who gets to keep the pressure on.
Starting to form a picture of our top 8 here, by the way, Reed. We don't have it locked in, right? We don't like to call the top 8 until it's actually made the top 8 because there are rare circumstances that can change the dynamic. But if things were to stand the way that they were from now, we would end up with 6 copies of Temur Aetherworks Marvel in our top 8 here.
Wow.
1 Temur Energy, so the one that issues the Marvels, and 1 copy of Black Green Constrictor. So, assuming that holds up.
And that would be a very different result from the other 2 Grand Prix this weekend, where
only 1 made it?
I believe it was 1 in each of the other 2 Grand Prix.
Yeah.
A Marvel deck made it to the top 4 in Grand Prix Manila, but for the most part, pretty early exits by that archetype.
Yeah. It looked like it was pretty well represented in day 2, but maybe the metagame was prepared for it. But here, if things hold, we will have a heavily Marvel-dominated top 8. We're going to bring you reports of that once we get it official. And you will know once we do. For now, we're kind of winding things down here in Omaha before we wind it right back up again for our top 8. But we're a little more relaxed than we normally are at this stage of the tournament, just because, again, normally we would be seeing players who were playing with top 8 on the line rather than pro points, and cash finish. It's okay, though. It happens sometimes. Here's Jeremy playing a Lord of the Accursed, triggering his Diagraph Colossus and building out a board. And this is kind of fun, actually, Reed. Both players kind of doing what they want.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, well, whose deck is better? Right now, Matthias Hunt getting in there, and he's got Ronus sitting there.
Diagraph Colossus and Winding Constrictor on their respective sides of the battlefield. Those are the cards that are most able to run away with the game when they go unanswered. And you can see the Colossus, Jeremy got to untap with it, and already it's produced 2 zombies. Matthias hasn't had a particularly counter-centric draw yet, but the threat of something like a Nissa Voice of Zendikar or a Verdurous Gearhulk could change the game very quickly here.
And this is the part I like. Both players are like, well, I'm the aggressor, right? And the other one's like, my turn, attack you. I guess I'm the aggressor. Somebody's got to be wrong.
Yep.
Somebody knows something that the other doesn't. And they're both just attacking each other at every opportunity. I love it.
So Matthias has a lot of good tools at his fingertips here, but everything's working out in a little bit of an awkward way. For example, he's got Ronas, but it's not able to attack or block because his creatures only have 2 and 3 power. He's got Fatal Push, but he does not have Revolt, so he can't kill any of the most important creatures on Jeremy's side of the battlefield. We might see him do something like take out the Relentless Dead at the end of the turn, but it's a lot of almost things working out for Matthias Hunt right now.
This is a good opening to take out that Relentless Dead. No mana available for Jeremy. Though, as you mentioned, long term, the Diagraph Colossus and the Lord of the Accursed have a bigger role here than the Relentless Dead itself. So if he can get Revolt at some point, he may want to save it. It's a tough spot for Matthias Hunt. I feel like he's behind yet again.
Yeah, taking a look at his hand, his best route to victory here might be to end of turn, Fatal Push something, untap and hope to draw a 5th land for Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, because he really does have to kill Lord of the Accursed here, because Menace with a board of 6 creatures is going to make it really hard for him to fight in combat successfully. Okay, that's what he goes for.
Decides, yeah, you just got to get rid of that thing.
Oh,
what did he draw? A tap land. Hissing Quagmire for Matthias Hunt.
He has 3 energy, so can't even quite make the Long Tusk Cub. Oh, actually, you know what? With Winding Constrictor, he can make the Long Tusk Cub a 4/4. That's a great start because the Long Tusk Cub is a good blocker in its own right, and it will turn on Ronas.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, Matthias is no longer in race mode here, though, right? Like,
no, he's going to have to try to leverage his larger creatures to successfully block some of these zombies, protect his life total, and just, you know, take a dent out of that horde on the other side of the battlefield.
if he can survive this next turn, play out the Sky Sovereign, maybe he can stabilize. Gosh, it still feels like might be a little too late here for Matthias Hunt. Let's find out, though. 1 card left in hand for Jeremy. Don't know what it is. Oh, he is going to attack Reed. He is using Ronus' ability to pump the Winding Constrictor, which unlocks the attack from Ronus. So it's 5, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you know what he's doing? He's bluffing.
Yeah.
He's bluffing a blossoming defense here, right? He's saying, you're going to have to block with that Lord of the Curse, because if I have it, you're dead.
Yeah, it's a bold move, and there are some reasons why Jeremy might not believe Matthias's bluff, but I mean, if I'm sitting here, it's tough for me to
my
not
hands
block.
are sweating, man. He took it. Wow.
And he won the game.
Yes.
Wow.
Jeremy Sager says, I call. You don't have it. And Matthias immediately extends the hand. And Jeremy, with no card outside of a swamp left in his hand, makes the read, makes the gutsy call, and says, I'm going to win next turn. You don't have it. And he was right.
I'm impressed by Jeremy sniffing that out. There are 2 things that might have contributed to that. The first is Matthias, if he had Blossoming Defense, he could have used it defensively the previous turn to make a big blocker and activate Ronus, potentially eating 2 attackers. He didn't do that, so that's a hint that he didn't have it the previous turn. And Matthias, a slight, I mean, I give him credit for that bold attack, but he didn't do it 100% as well as he could have because he played the Hissing Quagmire
first
pre-combat. When you play a tapped land, that's probably what you drew that turn, right?
Yeah.
Why wasn't in play before that if you had drawn Blossoming Defense?
Also, just having additional cards in your hand is just more for your opponent to worry about, right? I mean, if you've got 3 cards, it could be one of those. All right. Well, that's going to do it for round 15 of live action here from GP Omaha. We'll be back with more after this.